Pisale Bugatti. Nangan no dress so that could Bamati. Davis a could dog the ye she would see. Nangan no dress so that could Bamati. Davis a could dog the ye she would see. Waiting on just so long.
အခုကျွန်တော်တို့ဒီနေ့ရှစ်လေးလုံးအခမ်းအနားရှင်းလင်းမြောက်အစီအစဉ်များကိုကျွန်တော်စတင်ကြီးညာပါမယ်ကျွန်တော်တို့ဗမာတိုင်းအောင်ရှင်းမှာငြိမ်သက်စွာတိုင်းဆန္ဒပြခြင်းဖြစ်ပါတယ်ဒီမိုကရေစီရရှိရေးဒီမိုကရေစီရရှိရေးဒီမိုကရေစီရရှိရေးဆရာနာရှင်စနစ်ကြာဆုံးရေးဆရာနာစနစ်ကြာဆုံးရေးဆရာနာရှင်စနစ်ကြာဆုံးရေးကာနာစီစဉ်တေးရကျွန်တော် opening speech ကိုကျွန်တော်ဖတ်ပါမယ် I thank you for the opportunity to speak on this occasion the 8th anniversary of the August 8, 1988 nationwide demonstration for democracy and freedom of our country, Burma. We students revolt against the military took place on 7 July 1962.
Now, the democracy of Samoa, the low champion, Topian, Nenenge, Tangoshi Sama, Sada Mioma. Ama, Genetic Shantan is at the bar. The net may on our net, Kansaruma, Zuma, Idruya, Generation Net, Mantiao, Miko Puget. Jonga movement, Mel, Peter, Pin, Nikon is at the bar. Tangoshi, Yellow, Yima, Rio, Idu Bemani, say Yeti, Tonoro John Dua, Solino Singane, Yopi Nyan. Democracy needs a position and report ye. Democracy and not sorry, sorry, you manage banner yard. Lenny met Naloy Nimet. So that I went for damage to John. Lenny didn't you like by Democracy Yashi ye. Say in Jojaye.
We are quite honored today by the presence of Dr. Sein Wing, the Prime Minister of the National Coalition Government of Union of Burma, whose visit coincides with this rally. Dr. Sein Wing is currently based in the United States of America to lobby not only the American government, but also to the European nations and other important countries. Dr. Sein Wing will address the meeting and bring us up to date with the situation in Burma. Would you please welcome the Prime Minister of the National Coalition Government of the Union of Burma, Dr. Sein Wing.
Thank you very much. Senator Vicky Bond, Sir William Case, honored guests, ladies and gentlemen. Today marks the 8th anniversary of the popular uprising for democracy in Burma. The people who had lived under a military dictatorship for over 26 years eagerly responded to a call for nationwide strike by the students and brought down that government. The generals loyal to that government, however, staged a bloody coup, killing thousands and arresting many more. However, the spirit of 88 had given birth to an organized movement for democracy in Burma. Even though the military had murdered and imprisoned thousands, the movement for democracy refuses to die and grow steadily. As evident by the gathering here today, the movement for democracy has gained many friends and supporters worldwide. The core strength of the movement, however, is the people inside Burma, who continue to support the National League for Democracy, led by Aung San Suu Kyi, resident at weekends, to listen to her speeches and express their support for the NLD. The massive support for the NLD is being seen as a threat by the military junta. It has stepped up its threat against NLD supporters and increased the suppression of the NLD members. The most glaring example of Aung San Suu Kyi. It is trying to reinstate a political system that is under the control of the military and legitimized through a constitution that is being drafted by delegates, most of whom are handpicked by the generals. The ambitious scheme of the generals is being financed by businesses which place their profits above human suffering. Without the inflow of funds from investments and businesses, who arm the massive army that protect the wealthy generals, democracy would have long prevailed in Burma. The main goal of National Coalition Government of the Union of Burma has always been identical to the aspiration of all the people in Burma. That is, to restore democracy and human rights. It has time and again appealed to the international community not to invest in Burma at this time because investments dissuade the general from entering into any meaningful talk to settle the political problems. In memory of the thousands of people that were killed by the military on August 8, 1988, I am repeating that call today. On behalf of the National Coalition Government, I wish to express my thanks to the conscientious companies that have stopped doing business with the Burmese generals. I also ask the people here in Australia and all over the world to boycott businesses that continue to abet the generals. Stop the investments. It is the time to stop the suffering in Burma. On the 22nd August 1966, at the Press Club, I will launch a campaign on behalf of the Burmese Women's Union, the National Union of Students, and the Australia-Burma Council. This campaign will encourage a boycott of companies in Australia choosing to do business with the slots. We will encourage to join that boycott.
From both Australia and from other parts of the world, from many, many other parts of the world. The slaughter, the Burmese regime at the moment has to be one of the most ruthless and one of the most brutal regimes in the world. And this is not letting up. It is not getting any better. Aung San Suu Kyi was allowed out of house arrest, and now gradually things are getting worse and worse and worse, and we just don't know when she will be back under house arrest. Let me quote a few words that Aung San Suu Kyi said recently to the UN Commission on Human Rights. We would like to remind those who are simply looking at economic benefits that they hope to reap from Burma today that they are working against their own long-term interests and the long-term interests of the international community in general. And I agree with that, and I believe that there are many, many Australian parliamentarians and a vast majority of Australian people who also agree with that. But let's look at the number of Australian business delegations that visited Burma. It doubled last year. 3 years ago, only 30 Australian business delegations visited Burma in one 12-month period. Last year, there was an average of 2 business delegations per week. Now, that's not what I call a flexible approach to Burma, as Tim Fisher does. That's what I call outrageous. They should not be in there. They should not be dealing with a regime as brutal and as ruthless as this one. I call upon, and I'm sure the Australian and parliamentary friends of Burma from Australia and all over the world call upon the SLORC to hand over power. Yet again we call on the SLORC to hand over power to the elected representatives of the people of Burma, to allow Aung San Suu Kyi to be completely free to do exactly as she wishes in her own country, and to allow the Burmese people to have the human rights and the basic freedoms that they are entitled to as human beings on this planet. Thank you.
So, ladies and gentlemen, I am greatly honoured to once again be present to participate in this Remembrance Day ceremony, because it commemorates one of the great days in Burmese history. I think it is made more special on this occasion because we have with us the Prime Minister of Burma, the Honourable Dr. Sein Win. And may I say this about Dr. Sein Win. He has exiled himself from his country, he has separated himself from his family, he lives in conditions of great difficulty and stress and constant strain. Recently, the United States government has imposed much harsher rules, much tougher rules on the slaughter. And this has been largely the result of the constant, quiet diplomacy of Dr. Sein Win. As Vicky Bourne has told you, the Australian Senator has also agreed to support the imposition of sanctions. Again, the work of quiet and steady and courageous leadership. So, Dr. Sein Win, we are delighted and honoured to have you with us here today. Now, on this occasion, we remember those who died on the 8th of August 1988. They are the martyrs of a free Burma. They will always be remembered as the people who stood in the front line of this battle for freedom. And may I associate with them another great Burmese patriot. Recently, Mr. Leo Nichols died in jail in Burma. He was a man who supported the freedom movement. He supported Aung San Suu Kyi and helped her whenever he could. He helped all those who were struggling for a free and democratic regime in Burma. He was arrested by the SLORC. He was placed in isolation. An ill man, he was denied his medical treatment, and as a result, after a short period in isolation, he died. He was murdered by the SLORC. His name must be coupled with all those others who have died in the defence of freedom and in the hope of a free Burma. In due course, when free people can again rule in Rangoon, we must ensure that a memorial is established in the heart of Burma's capital, on which will be inscribed the names of all those who died in '88 and those other patriots who died since that time, so that they will always be remembered. There have been two broad policies on Burma. One has been a policy of containment pursued largely by the United States, by Australia, and by many other Western countries. The other has been a policy of constructive engagement pursued by the ASEAN countries, and they've been pursuing that policy for some years. In that time, conditions in Burma have become worse. The policy of constructive engagement has failed miserably. It is now time for tougher policies. The United States government has indicated that it will impose tougher policies and sanctions if things do not improve. As Vicky Bourne told us, the Australian Senate has also given that lead. I cannot for the life of me understand why we do not now impose sanctions. We always have this soggy argument that you can't apply successfully, unilaterally, sanctions against Burma. Why not? It is about time, this is a moral issue, it is about time somebody set the example, took the lead, and showed the way, and imposed sanctions on the military regime. And Australia is a fine country for that to begin. And I would call on the Australian government to consider immediately the imposition of sanctions and set the pattern and the example for the rest of the free world. You know, we have been working for a long time on the freedom movement in Burma and for the freedom movement in Burma. Success will inevitably come because in the history of the world, those who fight and die for freedom win. And in the end, freedom is unassailable. It moves through and succeeds. But there are some requirements. We must be tenacious, we must be constant, we must maintain our courage, and above all, ladies and gentlemen, above all, we must present a united front. There must never be any divisions within the ranks of the Free Burma movement. If there are, that will only benefit this law. And we are here not to lose, we are here to win, and win we will. I wish you all well in your endeavours. Keep up the rage until you succeed. And I especially convey, on behalf of the Australian community, our warmest best wishes to Dr. Sein Win, and I trust that his stay in Australia will be both pleasant and infinitely rewarding. Thank you.